Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Women's Maximum Fitness Podcast. I am your host, Deborah Jean Terpstra, aka BuffCake22 on Instagram. And my guest today, I don't know very well, but IFBB Pro Kim Smith. I do know that you earned your pro card in women's physique and figure. Is that correct?
Yes, it's something I'm super proud of and one of my best memories.
So let's get started. So tell us a little bit about your athletic background, maybe sports you were in growing up as a child, and then how that progressed into bodybuilding.
Sure. Okay. So I've been playing sports since I was just a little kid. So I started off playing basketball. My dad was a college basketball person. And so he kind of tried to get me into that. And I wasn't as good. Volleyball was actually more my thing. So between middle school and high school, I ended up doing volleyball, basketball, and track. And so that, I believe that really helps to instill values of hard work and dedication and stuff. And so you leave high school, and if you're not playing college sports, which I actually didn't, I felt like I needed something to be able to pour my efforts into. And so I played volleyball, basketball, and track in high school. And then when I graduated, I had a couple friends that were into bodybuilding. And so, that's kind of how I got started. I actually was dating a guy at the time that had actually gotten me into the sport of bodybuilding. And so we did our first show together, and I had no idea what I was doing. I saw people on stage and I'm like, yeah, I should probably be able to get ready in 4 weeks or so. And so it's been quite a learning process, but it's just something that I definitely value. And I know it's what I've, been put on this earth to do. And so it's just the way that I spend, a lot of my free time.
So how old were you when you first, well, how old are you now?
I am 25. I turned 26 this St. Patrick's Day. So here in about 12 days. And every time I say it, I cringe because I'm like, oh man, like these birthdays just keep on getting faster and faster. But at the same time, I know it's a gift and it's a blessing to continue to have birthdays and everything. But I'm just like, oh man. So even talking about like my high school days, I'm like, I think I'm approaching my 10-year anniversary here soon. That's a little cringy. But my first show I actually did when I was 19 years old. So I did the Duel of Champions here in Omaha, which is actually where I'm from. And so I did it when I was 19. They didn't have a teen division or anything like that, like they do now. But I started competing in 2014, and I've actually done a show each year ever since.
Okay. So what did you compete in when you first did it? Did you go right to figure, or did you start with bikini?
I started in figure, and again, I didn't really know what I was doing, so I was debating between doing figure and physique, and I actually should have done bikini just because I didn't have the size yet for figure. But you go and you walk into the gym and you think you're just this big, you got all these big muscles. You're like, oh man, I could do figure or physique. And so I was debating it, and I actually have a friend that I worked at the same gym, worked out at the same gym. And he's like, you should probably do bikini. And I'm like, oh, I could probably do. So I met in the middle, and I'm like, I'll just do figure for my first one. And so I've been doing figure ever since. So I actually did figure through 2019 until I turned pro, is when I still couldn't decide between figure and physique. And so I was like, I'll do both. And actually turned pro in both at North Americans. So it's been quite a ride, but I'm hoping to still have a quite a few years left in the tank of this sport.
So you were on the fence. Were you on the fence when you turned pro, that you were trying to decide, was it your coach who was like, I think you could do well in figure or physique, so we'll just go ahead and shoot for both of them? I mean, this doesn't happen very often where somebody nails it in both, both
right.
categories.
I was pretty lucky. So it's kind of a funny story because I just had recently started working with my coach that year. And, I had done 2 national shows before where I had gotten second place and I had gotten fifth place. But my problem is, and has always been conditioning up until I started working with my most recent coach, Andrew Quirk. So the first show that we ever did together was North Americans, and it's one of those weird ones will actually allow you to do crossovers. So I mean, I could have done bikini too if I'd wanted to, or really as many classes as I had wanted to, which is different. But the guys, they have the option of doing classic and bodybuilding. So there's some national shows that are like that, and some that are not. It kind of just depends on the show. And so I had gotten to that point where I'm like, okay, we have enough muscle where, we could do well in figure, and I had done well in figure in the past. But with women's physique, they also look for that feminine aspect. And so they want, women that are still feminine and everything. And so we're like, we still have the shape for it. We have the size for that as well. And then depending on how conditioning goes, I kind of want the judges to tell me where I stand. And so that day I actually had competed, and women's physique was first, and then figure was after. And so we're like, okay, let's go ahead and do women's physique.
Yeah.
And it was a 1-day show, which was really nice. So they had actually put me dead center into women's physique. And so I'm like, okay, I, for the most part, know that I'm turning pro in women's physique, because it was actually the top 2 that got their pro card for the women's physique class. And so then I had figure, and I had really wanted to get my pro card in figure more so than women's physique, just because I had done it all the way up. So figure always had my heart.
Sure.
At the same time, I'm like, all right, well, I already know that, I'm turning pro in physique. So let's see how figure goes. And then for figure, I had actually split the middle with another girl who had a really, really beautiful physique. And so that one, after that had happened, I was like, oh man, I really hope that I turn pro in figure, even after, so then I had actually, so I went to finals, I won my pro card in women's physique, and then they actually put me out for the overall. And I actually had not done really any, like that was one of my first women's physique shows. And so I was like, wow, I'm going to the overall for this national show. And so I went out there and just gave it my all, and I ended up winning the overall in women's physique, which was huge for me. And I was like, well, I text my coach after. I'm like, well, that happened. Now let's see how figure goes. And so then went back out a couple hours later for figure, and they actually moved me to the middle and split the middle with one of my friends, Saba, who actually ended up winning the overall for figure. But so it was just a great day. But yeah,
What year was this that you turned pro?
that was 2019. So it was about a year and a half ago that I turned pro. Yeah. It was
Or
right before I was super lucky in the sense that it happened right before COVID went down.
yeah,
And so, didn't have to worry about shows being postponed or canceled or being held in a tent. And so I just, like, in terms of timing, that was about the best timing I could have asked for.
yeah, absolutely. The thing I was thinking of was a lot of people don't understand, there's the criteria for each category, but I think it's really important for people to go after what they want to compete in, because posing has a lot to do with what type of physique that you can present. So if you can have an honest coach or judge look at you and say, this might be what you're more suited for, but also be able to combine that with what you might want to do. Because I mean, I remember too, when women's physique first came out, people were talking about that. Aside from the conditioning, the shape was very similar to a bikini competitor, where it was real tiny in the waist. That's what they were looking for, just that X frame. So, and then you have so much, there's so much nuance with the women's physique posing that you can really hide a lot if you don't have something, and you're able to display a lot if you really can accentuate your posing. So
Definitely.
figure is actually, I think, one of the most difficult categories, because those, the quarter turns are really like, there's just no hiding. If you don't have it, you don't, you don't have it.
Right. Yeah. Yes, and if you add the heels on top of that, like I have never been figure has my heart, but if I could choose, I'm like, you know what? Like I wouldn't mind not having to wear heels up there. So that's something I enjoyed with the women's physique, but I think they're all beautiful divisions, but figure has my heart. I think that when women's physique is such a beautiful division just because it has like that muscularity and everything, and you get to do the posing, but at the same time it's still really accentuates that femininity, and so it can just be really a really cool combination of everything.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, now with them bringing women's bodybuilding back, there is this call for it to, for all the categories to have a high dose of femininity. That's really what they're looking for with, with Andrea Shaw winning bodybuilding, and she's gorgeous,
I
So I love the representations of who our sport is right now, and like in each of the categories. But yeah, just to drive home that the femininity aspect where people can, I think sometimes we're scared of so much muscle and what it would look like. And so many great representatives like yourself who just
Right. That's honestly why I love the sport so much is I've always been someone that likes to show other women that they can be empowered
yeah.
and can actually, do these things that are typically called guy sports and be like, we can do it and we can look pretty doing it and we can get our makeup on and still do it just as well as them. So I love the sport.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's really, I mean, it is fun because the more I talk to a lot of the pros in the industry, it is a display of, female power. Like I can do anything, I can create this muscle, and it's never been, the societal standard. We're kind of saying like, this is what you might want me to do or what you might want me to look like, but this is what I want to look like. I want my strength to show on the outside. And I think it's so cool.
Sure. And that goes for on and off the stage. So I mean you go on stage and you look, super beautiful and you're able to rock your physique and everything. But even just in the gym, training and being like, hey, like I'm not gonna do I mean, everyone can train how they want to train, but I personally love just going in the gym and just lifting some heavy ass weight and having like a really hard intense training style and showing those guys like, hey, like I can keep up with you, and if you're going to do 7 reps with this, I'm going to do my best to get those 7 reps. So it's just super fun.
I saw your last Instagram video you had um, with the trampoline, and then you were like, no, this is how I really, you were like, you're
Yeah.
like, how and then you had, how much weight did you have on that hack squat? Do you know?
I want to say it was 5 plates or something. I can't remember off the top of my head. But and I usually go for that heavy weight when I know I've got spotters around me and I know I have, a group of 5, 6 people yelling at me because there's no way I can say, hey, I can't do this when all these people are around you saying, hey, yes, you can. But at the same time, like you gotta have fun with it, like going to the gym and have your serious moments, but also have like your laughing, like, hey, like this is, fun, kind of a thing as well. So
It sounds like this like bodybuilding is something that you are going to like, you're just passionate about the training aspect regardless of competing, like something that like you found something that you can carry with you for a long time.
oh, for sure. So I mean, you're only on stage for a maximum of 10, 20 minutes the entire day, and so to do it just for the stage time, that wouldn't necessarily be like the best. But if you enjoy the training through the thick and thin, like obviously when you're prepping, cardio and the dieting and the being depleted isn't exactly the most fun thing to deal with all the time, but at the same time it's also super rewarding. On top of that, just meeting like the most amazing people. I've met so many amazing people across the country through this sport, whether it's on social media or at the show or in person or just at a gym. um, I love the training aspect, and I love just having a community and having people that I can talk to and make friends with. Like it's something that I'll continue to do regardless of whether the stage is there or not for me.
I think social media has been such a great thread over the last, 5 or 10 years, being able to tie us all together because um, that's exactly it. Like, I feel like I have friends that are better friends than people that I have close to me. And some of them I've never even met in person. So
Yeah, I actually had just seen a meme and it had something to do with like I have so many friends that are closer friends to me that, hype me up on social media all the time. And you're one of those people as well. You're very positive and encouraging. And I just love seeing other women just hype each other up and be like, yeah, babe, you got this, or you're looking so good. And I think that's one of the really, really good things about social media is it can be a really good tool for encouraging others and getting people informed and involved and all those different things.
well, and this whole group of women who just decided, like, I mean, I grew up in the 90s, so it was like, skinny was the look, and it was,
Right.
it was, that's what it was. It was like shrinking, and there's so much talk now about like, taking up space. That's what we need to do as women. And so when you have somebody like you who's saying, hey, this is what I did because I love it. I love getting stronger. I love growing muscle. I love what type of person that this makes me become. Like, you just increase all these good characteristics about yourself that are side effects of bodybuilding. You know what I mean? And it shows other women who might be struggling or trying to figure out who they are. They have a place and a purpose. And yeah, it's like this big team. It's just the coolest.
It's awesome. It's such a beautiful thing, when people use it the right way for sure, or do it for the right reasons, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. So the training was what you got started with, and then so is that kind of more is that your favorite part? Tell me a little bit about your diet. Is that is that more of a struggle for you? Is that like second?
Yeah, it's funny because my coach, he always jokes that Kim just loves her food, and it's absolutely true. Like I have never been the person that's been like, I don't feel like eating right now. Like even if I'm sick, even if I'm feeling down, like I'm still like, all right, it's meal time for meal two. But I mean, just a little bit of a background about myself is I went to school for math and so I graduated with a math degree in college and now I'm a data scientist. And so those two aspects actually have a lot to do with numbers and this is why this is a certain way, like these are the patterns that we're seeing and these mathematical patterns are the reason why this is how it is. And so I love kind of relating that to bodybuilding. I've always been a very like black and white numbers person. And so to me, seeing like the minutes of cardio versus the number of carbs versus number of proteins, fats,
Yeah.
what have you, reps, like you look at it, it's all numbers. And so if you don't like numbers, it's going to be a little bit more difficult to kind of like make those dots, connected. But so I mean, I tell you, like I was made for this sport, and or this, yeah. So like I was put on this earth to do bodybuilding. And it's because like I'm it almost drives my coach crazy because sometimes he's like, it's not always about the numbers, it's not always about the weight on the scale, it's not always about that, but I try and relate as much as I can and learn from, what, whether it's carb cycling or,
Yeah.
increase cardio, decrease in cardio, blood work, whatever it is, like it's all numbers. And so I
Yeah.
just, I always tell people I'm about 5% crazy and that's about my 5% crazy, but I try to use it for good and not for evil.
I think it's awesome because I mean, you are your own case study, right? Like that's kind of what's fun about this is you can try different things and you can, measure what's going on and if that's going to work for next time or measuring your progress. So, um, and I think the type A bodybuilders tend to, I mean, you just do really well because if you can kind of pull some of that emotion out of there and do things a little bit more black and white, yeah, you're definitely headed for stardom, I think.
Definitely. And my coach, he always tells me that I'm doing I'm more of like a robot in the sense that I'll just kind of do like what I'm told to do. And so, that's typically how coaches kind of want their clients, is just be like, okay, like
Yeah.
these are the numbers. This is what you're going to do. Let's see, let's learn. And if it's working, great. If it's not, then that's fine too. We can change it. But the thing is, you've got to be consistent with it so you can actually figure out what's going on in the body.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about what lockdown was like for you. What was life during the pandemic, and did you have gym access? Were you able to stay on track? Were you working? I don't know.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, I guess it happened. So funny. It actually happened the week of my birthday last year. So I think it's almost been a year since the whole thing kind of cracked down. I'm a St. Patrick's Day baby. And it was funny because no one was going out to the bars or anything, for I'm not a bar person myself, but for people that are there, they didn't have that this St. Patrick's Day. So it's kind of almost bringing back memories now that it's almost that time of year again.
For sure.
Um, but yeah, so thankfully I am in Nebraska. And so Nebraska actually didn't have a statewide mandate to close down gyms. So there was a few gyms that closed down, and we actually did have mandates to limit the number of people that could be in the gym at a given time. And so thankfully I had a couple gyms, Bob's Fitness Complex and Iron Heaven, that actually stayed open during the pandemic. They just had restrictions about 10 people maximum at the gym, which so in terms, and I had actually started what I was considering my prep for my pro debut at that time. And so I'm like, oh, I mean, everything, whenever something comes down during a prep, it's just like, man, I have to, but like it was a blessing to be able to still go to the gym. I just had to change my times to whether it was really late or if it was, over my lunch hour, quickly make it over there. And it's not ideal, but I mean, I had friends that had shows canceled and they had, gotten all the way to 3 weeks out. So I mean, I had started prepping for what I was planning on doing the Chicago Pro in July, but then all the shows ended up being postponed. But yeah, so that's how my life was during the pandemic. Again, it had changed, but it wasn't to the point where I was doing band workouts every single day or stairs, in my actual stairs. I actually do have a stairmaster in my basement because I'm 5% crazy. So I was able to use that for my cardio aspect. But I mean, the gym was, regardless of where you stand for the COVID, regardless of where you stand, like the gym has always been a great place just for my mental health and just making sure that I'm able to clear my thoughts. And okay, you have a really frustrating day at work, or even just the socialization aspect of just seeing other people and other like-minded people. It's something that helped keep me sane during the entire thing. So I'm just really thankful that I was able to find a gym in some sort of capacity during that entire ordeal.
Yeah, we were very locked down. And I mean, I think about that too, because when I go into the gym, I don't really talk to people, but it is my social time because they're there, you
Yeah.
know. So just like, yeah, I remember I was at the grocery store one time after things were kind of like, it was still strict, and like somebody made some comment and some guy was like, hey, we're just happy to be out, like because we just really couldn't even go anywhere. So um yeah, it must have been nice to not have things quite so strict. So but you did have to put off your pro debut because of the
Yeah.
shows. Yeah, so tell me a little bit, what are the future plans here?
All right. Yeah. So, well, I actually did do my pro debut in September. It was just postponed from July. So it was really nice because I did like the first half of my prep up until they had, canceled Chicago, or not canceled Chicago, postponed it. So I did my first half of my prep and I got I got relatively lean to a more comfortable kind of phase. And then, after they had postponed everything, we're like, okay, there's no point in us continuing to cut. So let's just try and get those calories back up and get the stress off the body and then figure out where we want to go from there, whether it's just kind of holding off for the rest of the year or going ahead and going for those preps. But we wanted to continue. We wanted to do my pro debut that year, I guess last year. And so when we found out that the Savannah Pro which I believe was actually the end of August. It was actually 1 year exactly after I had turned pro. So I turned pro August 29th, 2019, and then the Savannah Pro was August 29th, 2020. So it was kind of funny. And it was funny because I was literally comparing day by day, like, okay, July 19th, this is what I looked like last year versus this year. Today is July 19th. So I did my pro debut in Savannah, and with the competing schedule, I believe there was only 4 or 5 figure shows the entire year that actually had gone down after COVID had started. So I did the Savannah Pro, and then immediately a week later, I ended up doing the New York Pro, which is called Tampa 2.0 down in Tampa, Florida. So I did those back to back, which isn't ideal just because you want to have kind of at least 2 weeks in between shows to balance back out and everything. But we did what we could. And so my coach did a great job of being like, okay, this is what we looked like at Savannah, and this is what we can do in this next week to improve for the New York Pro. But yeah, so I did those. There was, I want to say 35 or 40 girls in each show. So there were a lot bigger shows because with all the other shows being canceled, everyone was kind of packing into one. So, being like a newer pro on that stage, I ended up finishing about middle of the pack. So, which I was really just more happy with the sense that I had improved significantly my package from when I had turned pro. So that was a victory in itself. But again, it was just a little bit, it was just a different kind of experience for a show just because it was big. It was bigger than any show I had ever competed in at the national or at the local level. So it was a great show, and I brought back a really great package that I was super proud of, and we learned a lot. And so now we have the goals for improving for the next time I step on stage.
So what are you working on as far as improvements go? What do you think is about your physique or what is the feedback been?
It's so funny because if people ask and I'm like, well, I feel like everything needs work. I'm not like, oh, I think everything needs work, but the feedback from the judges were just a little bit more conditioning, and a little bit more thickness in the back. And then on top of that, I know we personally wanted to make my shoulders a little bit more capped from the front, and then bring up my glutes a little bit just to kind of increase that hourglass figure even more so. So they said there wasn't really a ton of change that needed to happen. And a lot of those figure girls actually, we kind of all look very similar just because we both have, or we all have really, really good shapes. But at the same time, like I know exactly what I need to work on. And so I'm like really motivated just to continue this to improve that package and to be able to stand out, kind of having been on that pro stage for 2 years now.
So has your training split kind of changed then in order to try to improve those areas?
Yeah. Yep. And yes, I mean, like I always love learning. Like I thought I knew everything when I was doing superset after superset, just chasing the pump and doing, a ton of volume work. And then I learned how actually to train heavy and to take rest in between sets and quality over quantity. So it's not about how many sets you do, it's about the quality that you put into each of those sets. And so that's a mentality that I like to maintain, and everyone has what works for them. But so I've kind of taken that mentality and incorporated it into my own training. And then along with that, I'll hit my troublesome areas at least twice a week. So shoulders is always twice a week. Glutes always hit twice a week, and hamstrings, I've always been very quad dominant, which a lot of people actually are dominant. So I have to put a day where I really just focus on putting those hamstring curls first and those Romanian deadlifts first, just so that I really hit those hamstrings before doing any sort of pressing movement that my quads naturally take over. And on top of that, just putting really heavy glute bridges in there and kickbacks just to make sure I'm just bringing up my troublesome areas. My back is actually one of my stronger body parts, so I will try and hit it twice a week as well. But if I can only hit it once a week, just because I also need to make sure I am resting. So right now, I can really only train heavy for 3, maybe 4 days in a row before my body tells me, hey, Kim, like, calm down, you need to take a rest. And that's something that my coach actually helped me learn a lot, is I would train for 9, 10 days in a row. And I'm like, I'm really run down and my weight's not dropping. I don't know why. He's like, you need to take 3 days rest and get a cheat meal in you and just let your body recover for a second. It's telling you something. You just got to listen to it. And I'm like, you're crazy. I'm going to put on 3 pounds. And I did it. And, I ended up like losing weight from that. I'm like, you are some kind of wizard. Like, and here, and like the numbers aren't making sense in my head. And I'm like, but we added calories, we decreased cardio, we haven't been like, so the crazy part of me is just like, what the heck's going on? But
Your body's like all inflamed and holding all this water because you've trained
yeah,
for 9 days in a row.
yeah.
Does it blow your mind to think about like how your training used to be versus like it's really about, when you learn it, is about a connection, right? Like you get a connection now, so now you're able to increase that intensity, you know what I mean? Like I know, because I think about that too. When I'd be in the gym for hours, like just doing every back exercise, 4 or 5 sets of like, and you're basically like just trying to throw shit at a wall to see if it sticks.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like,
right.
oh, yeah,
It's all about quality versus quantity. I'm asked all the time, like by people that kind of aren't, super familiar with sport. So how many hours do you spend
yes,
in a day at a gym? And I'm like, well, it's definitely not like 7 or anything. And honestly, if I was there for 7 hours, I'd probably want to like, like go
yeah,
home and whatever. But I mean, it's all about quality versus quantity. So that's it's different to think of because you want to think more is better, but it's not always more is better. Sometimes it's just better is better.
yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah, work smarter and harder, not
Mhm.
longer.
Definitely, definitely.
Nice. So where are you now? Are you in your off season? It's a good idea. Are you in your improvement season right now? How much time are you going to give yourself before you decide to do a prep again? You waiting for the world to decide if it's gonna?
Yeah, there's a lot of different factors. Like, I mean, the nice thing about getting your pro card is, once you have it, you have it. And, there's no expiration date. There's no, okay, you have to compete in, a certain amount of shows or place in a certain, number of shows. Like, so once you have it, it's kind of like, okay, you got to take your time, like when your physique is going to be better. And so right now I'm kind of in a between period where we got through the holidays and I'm like, okay, like we're getting to that point where I need to kind of cut down just a little bit, um, and kind of get my insulin sensitivity back and everything. And so we are just now finishing up a mini cut, just to kind of get the body reset. And then I want to put on some more size, especially in my shoulders and my glutes and my hamstrings. And then when we feel like we're ready and that the body is in a good de-stress state, my calories are up and, my body parts are brought up and I put the muscle where I need to, then we're going to go ahead and because there's no point in doing a show if you don't feel like you're going to really bring back a better package than you did last time. So, depending on how that goes, it could tentatively be this fall or it could be, next spring too. I also kind of want to see what happens with shows and a lot of them are being held in states that are a little bit more lenient with their rules and everything right now, which is nice that they've kind of found a way to keep these shows going. But at the same time, I'm just going to kind of wait and also just figure out when my body is ready for another prep.
Yeah,
Um,
that totally makes sense. Um,
mhm.
what was I gonna say? Hmm, I don't know. What is your what is your diet looking like right now?
So I mean, I eat seven meals a day, and so I mean, right now it's a little bit lower on the carb side. My coach and I have actually learned that carb cycling actually works pretty well. So I consider myself an endo-meso morph. So I put on muscle pretty easily and
Yeah,
I grow pretty easily, and it takes a while for me to flatten back out once we do fill me up with carbs or a cheat meal or whatever. I still get my cheat meal,
yeah,
once on the weekends, and my coach always jokes about how much I love food, so he knows to leave the cheat meal in, or I'll be but so it's more of like a carb cycling diet. I've never been someone that can just eat, an insane amount of carbs and, still kind of maintain. And so it's a double-edged sword in the sense that I can put on muscle easily and I'm never feeling like I'm force feeding myself.
Yeah.
At the same time, I wish that I could eat more, but I mean, it's just the luck of the draw. So it's all about genetics. Some people are genetically blessed to be able to eat a lot of food. Some people are genetically blessed to put on muscle easily. Some people are, they have really good shape from the start or really good muscle bellies, and it's kind of all just luck of the draw. So
Yeah, no, I totally understand that. I think a lot of us got into lifting too, realizing, I mean, if you're a foodie at all, that you really can eat quite a lot when you put that effort in the gym.
yes, yes. And that is, I mean, that's true to a certain extent, but I mean, at the same time, like I remember I would used to, when I was in high school, when I was playing, volleyball, basketball, track, I was eating like chocolate milk and Pop Tarts every single morning. We had a cookie store that, I worked at, being in one of the school clubs and everything. And so I'd have my morning breakfast, and I look back and I'm like, that was like 100 grams of sugar just for breakfast, no protein, maybe a little bit from the chocolate milk. And I'm just like, I don't think I could ever go back to anything like that. And kind of knowing how much food can actually change your body. It's really like, it's 70% of the work is just diet alone. So
Yeah.
um, it's definitely interesting, to say the least, but
It's
at the same time, it like makes you like look forward to like, okay, if you do get a cheat meal on the weekends, it's not just like, oh, I'm having, pizza today, Taco Bell tomorrow. Like it don't, that kind of almost gets kind of tiring. I don't know if I could do that every day of the week now, but like now I'm like, all right, so tomorrow it's actually Saturday, so I get my cheat meal and, planning it all week.
I think like, I mean, I know when I was growing up, it was like, or when I got more interested in nutrition, nobody understood the value of protein like we do now. So it's kind of like, I mean, that's kind of what I design, isn't it's kind of what your meals all center around, you know what I mean? Even a cheat meal, it's kind of like, well, I'll get sushi or something or a burger where I know I'm going to be getting, some sort of protein. I don't know. I'm not a pizza person. Like that's never my go-to for just make it just makes me feel like crap. I think it's I don't know if it's, somebody might say it was the gluten or whatever, the wheat, but I just think it's this intense, very glutinous carbs just make me want to sleep and feel like
Yeah.
so sluggish. It's delicious, but yeah.
I'm a pizza person. It's weird. I almost am attracted to the things that don't really have. So if I'm not trying to keep it, like sometimes my coach will say, okay, keep it more of a cleaner cheat,
Yeah.
or like a couple sushi rolls or something like that. Whereas in like, okay, like,
Yeah.
something that we learned about my body this past prep is that my body does really well with kind of, stressing it out a little bit and then rewarding it with a cheat meal when it kind of gets to that point where it's overly stressed. And so he'd tell me to go have like a burger and fries or whatever. So I don't know, for some reason I'm like really attracted to things that don't have protein just because you eat so much. You eat some with every single meal. I'm just like, I just want like some donuts,
Yeah.
some ice cream, like
I was gonna
a
say
huge
donut. Yeah.
too.
Yeah. We have a really, really great Sweetwater's Donuts around here where usually after church on Sunday, my daughter is like, can we go? Because it's on the way home, So
Sure.
and
That's the most fun thing too, for
yeah,
sure.
yeah. So sometimes she just gets them and sometimes I get them with her. But yeah. And they have something special every week too. So you're like, we have to go at least look and see what it is.
Yeah, you go and you look and there's no way you can be like, not having that today.
So that's awesome. Oh, I know what I was going to ask you. So, what was I don't know how tall you are, and I was going to ask, what was your weight when you first stepped on stage versus, like, what was the weight progression? Now, I know conditioning obviously changes because, yeah.
So I'm 5'6",
Oh,
I guess half or something like that. So, but yeah, around that height. And so when I first competed in 2014, my stage weight was about 130, I believe.
okay.
And then competed a year later, and I thought that I had put on 10 pounds of muscle, and I did not put 10 pounds of muscle on. And, so, and I didn't have a coach at the time. So I was doing it myself. And so I went on stage at 140, and I was less lean than I was my first year. And so I kind of hovered around that 140 to 150 for the next few years. Then, I competed, and, I had actually hired a coach, and we had gotten down to like the mid like 140s ish, where my conditioning was decent. It was enough to get second at junior nationals and fifth at Team Universe. And then, my coach, my most recent coach, Andrew Quirk, told me that I need to be peeled on stage, and that's what they're looking for. And that's what a lot of the judges say as well, is that, you need to hone in conditioning. And so we got me down to, I believe, 141 for my pro card when I turned pro. And then I put on a decent amount of muscle. And again, like, you get to a certain point, 10 pounds of muscle to a beginner is a lot. But then when you've been doing this for 5, 6 years, just putting on 5 pounds of muscle
Yeah.
is a lot of progress. So, between my pro debut, or sorry, me turning pro versus my pro debut, that's when I really changed my training style up. And I was training guys, and they were telling me, okay, really do like a heavy set, don't be doing all that volume, from
Yeah.
the pump kind of stuff. So I'm like, okay, I'll try it, and actually put on a decent amount of size. And so when I came back down for my pro debut, I was actually right around the same weight. So right around that 140, 141. But I had a significantly more conditioned package, just because, some of that had been converted into muscle. And some of it, wasn't as much body fat. So right now, I assume we're probably going to be maybe the, 140-ish,
Yeah.
maybe to 45 range for the next time, but it all depends on how much muscle I put on.
Yeah. So, what do you think is the key to nail that conditioning? Because, that's really been the biggest change in, I think, the industry over the last few years, is that they're really requiring this freakish conditioning for, the people that are winning and getting their pro cards, and then, obviously getting to the Olympia stage. So, do you think it just repeated over time? You get better and better at nailing the conditioning, or I don't know. What are your
Yeah, I think a few things. So to start, something that really helped me with my conditioning is, in the past, I had not had the best rebounds, especially with any coach. I didn't know what rebounding was. So I would put on, 40, 50 pounds for my first couple shows. And then, no matter how much muscle you put on, it's really hard to get that conditioning as good as it needs to be if you have so much
Yeah.
more body fat to cut, because your body's going to be stressed out trying to get all that weight off.
Yeah.
You can only work for so long before the body kind of starts to, and you have to continue to make drastic changes once you hit plateaus. So it's honestly, a lot of it's just in the off season, having a good controlled off season, keeping your insulin, levels in check, is huge. And so just making sure, like, it really is a lot in the off season. And so then for my case in particular, and everyone, and I know people that diet completely different than I diet, but for me, cookie cutter diets, like, they work to a certain, they don't work. So, they'll work to a certain extent for a little bit, but if
Yeah.
you just say, okay, you just got to be eating trace carbs, or no carbs, and don't reward the body, don't keep it, try and balance the stress versus like really, pushing hard, eventually you're going to hit a stall. And so that's something that really helped with, my most recent coach, is that we were able to really figure out my body and be like, okay, it's not always just cookie cutter diet, like, you know keeping the calories low or whatever. Like, you have to push and then reward, and push, reward. But I mean, there's other people that just diet, straight diets, and it just works well for them. And then once it stops working, okay, I gotta maybe increase cardio a little bit, decrease food, and everyone's different. And that's the fun thing about it too, is there really is no right or wrong way to do it. Like, something works for some people, something works for other people. We all have different lifestyles, different, jobs, or what have you. And so, um, But I think just finding, like, experimenting with different things and finding out what works for you, because if you're doing something and it's not working, then you need to figure out a different game plan, because that's the definition of insanity, is doing the same thing and expecting different results.
Yeah, I agree. I think that it's funny because I, even with like coaching people, I noticed that too. Because if somebody continues to lose weight on a weekly basis, without having to change things, that's almost always shocking to me. You know what I mean? Because I'm like, so we can just keep riding this out. Like you never, almost never get to say that, because I think that's the beauty of working with a coach. They're going to be able to interpret that biofeedback and be able to make changes on what's going on. And like you said, sometimes you need to pull back on the training and give yourself a cheat meal because your body is stressed from one thing or another. And then all of a sudden a bunch of weight drops, so.
Definitely. Yeah. And honestly, to your point, it does help having someone that's not inside your body, like looking at you and being like, okay, you know what, your body weight may not be changing, but your body composition is changing. So it kind of keeps you sane in that sense. But I mean, there's also a benefit to having someone that knows. And I mean, it's unfortunate. Like I have seen a lot of women, go down the cookie cutter route and they lose 20 pounds in a month, or, even more than that. But then they end up developing thyroid problems, or, metabolic issues, just because they do it too hard, too fast. They just completely just beat the crap out of their bodies, and they're not really able to recover from that. And so then, the reverse happens. They're not in a good state. And then they end up putting just as much weight on, if not more, and their bodies are stressed out. And so, just having someone that's kind of knowledgeable with that as well, and understanding both sides. And, okay, we're not looking at this for the short term. We're looking at this for the long term. We're looking at this because of your health. So, I mean, honestly, like getting blood work done is, helpful as well, just making sure that your thyroid levels are in check or what have you. So, I mean, it's all important. And again, this sport is about longevity and health. It's not just about getting ready for a stage that you are on for 10, 20 minutes. It's about the long haul as well.
Yeah. And I like, one of the things I've noticed too, I feel like the first prep for most people is a lot easier. And,
Yes.
it's easier, and they get easier and they get harder. But that first prep, it's like the first time you diet, you can lose a bunch of weight. But like if you have children or you gain weight up for a reason or whatever, then going back and trying to diet that off, it's like, it just, calories tend to need to get lower and everything. So I think you're, right on the money too, with just monitoring that off season and being realistic with how much time you need, to lose that weight in order to get on stage and be shredded, which I think most people overestimate. Like,
And on my first show, oh yeah, it'll only take me about 4 weeks to
yeah,
get that up.
yeah,
I'm like, yeah, I'm like looking at it, I'm like, all right, so we're 20 weeks out. Do we need to
right.
start? No, like, is
Well,
that enough time?
and different things are becoming more and more popular now. And, I've been reading more about, things like diet breaks and people who do, dieting 5 days and then 2 days with refeeds. And, as long as you don't have a timeline of, 12 weeks and I got to be on stage, the more time that you can take to do it, well, I mean, the less muscle you're going to lose, first of all, during that, deficit period, but, and probably just feel better. You can do anything, if you're like, oh, you're going to be dieting for 20 weeks, you're going to be like, oh my gosh. But then like, oh, but you'll be able to have a cheat meal every week or something like that. Then you're like, oh, that's not so bad, So,
Yeah, it keeps the body in a less stressed state. You're going to lose less muscle. You're going to have a better look because your muscles are going to be fuller and not as, beat down and everything. So, everyone has a different way of tackling it. And I don't think there's really a right versus wrong way or something. Like everyone kind of has to find out what works best for them, which is the beauty of it too.
Yeah, yeah. And it is interesting hearing the different things that people do or have to do in order to, achieve the same goal. It's really neat.
Definitely. Definitely.
So, all right. So we'll do top 10. This is just kind of like, well, some of these are a little bit longer questions, but sort of rapid fire questions.
All right. Lay it on me.
Okay. So country music or rock music?
Oh man. It depends. I really like, I don't know. I think I'm more of a country music kind of person just because it's a little bit more versatile. And it's like, okay, there's like, working out country music and then there's just chill, laid back country music. But I really like, had just recently gone, not recently, but back when they were a thing, a rock concert and actually going to the mosh pits was actually pretty fun. So I mean, if I had to choose, I'd probably say country.
What did you when you posed for Women's Physique, what did you pose to? Was it
Oh man, what was the name of that? It's funny because I actually was not super, I kind of just winged my routine. And so I actually had asked a friend who had some extra CDs, like, hey, like, some good songs, like, can I borrow one? So I cannot, oh, what was it? Oh, I cannot remember off the top of my head the name of it.
so do you think that you're gonna do anything with your Women's Physique Pro card? Or are you gonna stick with figure? I think
I mean, figure always has my heart, and I at the pro level, I think that the figure girls at the pro level are a little bit bigger. Same with women's physique, are just a little bit bigger on the pro stage versus the amateur stage. So unless I put on a significant amount of muscle, I see myself being in figure at least for the next probably year or 2 years. And if they tell me, hey, Kim, you're too big for figure, which was not the case this past one,
yeah.
then I could consider doing women's physique, which I enjoy. I enjoy the posing and I enjoy the no heels part and I enjoy the routine. But I think for now I'm gonna stick with figure.
Okay. All right. Cool. Cool. So, do you have a latest favorite read?
I'm not a huge reader person, but in terms of books that have been recommended to me, there's this one called The Power of Now, I believe, by Edgar Tolle. I
Yeah.
think I had started, reading, and it talks about, doing things like in the present and just being present and not thinking about the past or the future or letting that affect you. And that was actually recommended to me by a good friend. And so I think it's really important to think of the present and thinking, of just how things are good right now and not worrying about the future or, thinking badly about the past. It's something that really has like my mental mindset. So that's probably the best I've had recently.
Well, how much did we not appreciate the present before 2020? You know what I mean? Like we had so
I
much taken away that, yeah, wishing
definitely
I'm wishing now how some things were back to the way they were, just for not because like I miss going out or those things, but I know other people are missing out on aspects of their lives that are still kind of,
sure. Yeah, it really teaches you not to take anything for granted too, like
yeah,
just being able to go out to eat, something as small as that. It's just like, wow, like,
yeah.
I didn't realize how big of an impact, like how, like once you kind of take that away or the gyms or whatever it is, like, wow, I did take that for granted. It's a gift.
Yeah, and it's something too that we've been sort of avoiding as far as avoiding anything. It's been going out to eat just because, I want my daughter to be able to finish up. She's doing face-to-face school, and I want her to be able to. I would feel so bad if I brought COVID home just because I wanted to go out to eat at a restaurant. You know what I mean? So you kind of got
Right.
to pick your poisons.
Sure. How old is your daughter, by the way?
She's 15. She'll be 16 in September.
Oh, wow. You know what? You look great for having a 15-year-old daughter. I will be hitting you up when I, kind of get to that, level where I start having, kids and start worrying about, yeah.
20 years. You still got 20 years before you hit my age. So
Oh, man.
what is what's your favorite thing about social media?
My favorite thing about social media is just all the people that you meet and the different positive messages and the ability to impact people in a positive way. So, I mean, I might post workout videos and be like, oh, hey, go ahead and give this a try. And then I'll have someone reach out and be like, hey, I tried it and I really, really liked it. Thanks for posting it. Or just, someone posts a selfie or a physique update and just being able to say, hey, like you did a great job. And, it feels rewarding. People do that to other people. And then at the same time during my prep, Not that that sort of validation should be needed or required. I also believe you should have your own internal validation for yourself. But I mean, just having like that positive and encouraging circle really helps, and then on top of that, just meeting all the amazing people and the amazing friends that I've met through social media. Those are all just some of my favorite aspects.
Yeah, I just love how it's grown to be like something that is, there's definitely aspects of it that are frustrating.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, you would just never know people around the country or the world if it wasn't for social media. You just wouldn't.
Definitely. Now it is a double-edged sword, like you mentioned. Like there's some people that, they look at themselves and they compare themselves to like the bests of other people. And it's like you're not seeing what that person's dealing with or what they're doing or if they're photoshopping their stuff or what have you. Some people are like, okay, this person is better than me or worse than me because of the amount of followers that they have. And it's just like that is literally just a number on a screen.
Right.
That's all it means. So there's some negative aspects as well, but I think if you're able to use it in a more positive sense,
Yeah.
it's such a powerful tool.
Yeah. I think that's human nature though, because I mean, even before social media, I would have that at school. I mean, we didn't have social media when I was a kid, but you would still, it's just human nature to compare yourself. So if you can understand, I think that happens a lot more when you're younger. When you start to mature, you realize, hey, I create my own life. I'm my own unique person. I can become whatever I want. And the people that like it, the people that are drawn to you will be drawn to you and support you.
Sure.
And the people that don't will find somebody else that they're drawn to. And that's okay. So yeah. So what cravings did you have during prep?
I always get sugar tooth cravings. I don't know. I don't know if it's genetic or, whatever. I love my sweets, but I mean, I would always want, donuts and ice cream is the two main things, cookies.
Yeah.
I mean, really, like, I don't, if even if anything besides, chicken and rice and veggies or whatever, like was held in front of me, I'd be like, yeah, I wouldn't mind having that. But I mean, you gotta just get really creative with your seasonings or how you cook things. I bought a smoker for chicken and I actually just recently bought an air fryer for chicken, and both of those have completely changed my way that I look at chicken. Now I'm like, okay, I will never even throw chicken breast in the oven again. I refuse. But definitely I think after my second or my last show this past year, I ended up getting like some of those little mini donuts where they'll like make them all mini and then they'll kind of customize them based on how you want them. So, but then after that, like a pizza was the place to be after my second show as well. So
I think regardless of what happens, carbs are getting cut, by the end. And so people are craving carbs, even if you're not really like a huge carb person. So,
right. Yeah, definitely.
all right. So we'll get a little bit quicker with these. Okay. So, dogs or cats?
I actually have two kitties. So they were both born this past Mother's Day. Um,
Oh,
but yeah, so there'll be one here in May, but they're my two boys. And so, but I love dogs too. It's just for my personal lifestyle, especially, having worked in the office as well.
yeah.
I to take care of a dog, it would be really hard just because, I'm, single living at home. I don't have someone that can watch the dog while I'm away and they require a lot more attention. So I
Yeah.
guess for the sake kitties or cats.
All right. Baby animals or baby humans?
Probably baby humans. I think babies are cute and I hope to have a couple, maybe not in the near future, but when I'm ready for it. So I want to try and get a lot of my bodybuilding career out of the way just because I truly admire like moms, like fit moms like you who are able to like stay in the gym and also be like kick-ass mothers. So,
Yeah.
but probably baby humans.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a hard one for me too, but man, I do love babies, like especially for a while I was like, oh, I'd really like another one, but that ship's kind of sailed, so I have to wait for your grandchildren, I guess. Um, All right. So heels or sneakers? I think we covered this.
Yeah, probably sneakers
Uh,
99% of the time, unless I'm really feeling myself, I'll wear some heels. But
yeah. But comfort, heels and leggings. That's like, I mean, sneakers and leggings is probably.
definitely 99% of the time for sure.
So, burgers, pizza, or sushi. I think we covered this too.
Oh man, it's so hard to choose. I don't I would say uh, probably pizza if there's no rules. If there's rules, then sushi is never a bad bet. But honestly, for my last prep when I needed a refeed, for some reason, burger and fries was working really well for me. So that's just what we ended up doing. But I would not say no to any of them, I guess.
Nice. Favorite movie or TV show?
Favorite TV show. It's hard. I really loved Game of Thrones. That's one that I just watched through, and even with the ending, I know I'm not going to spoil it for anyone, but I still liked the ending. I still appreciated, the how things ended. But anything that's super suspenseful and something that I can actually binge watch is something that I really enjoy doing. So I liked Breaking Bad. I just recently watched Behind Her Eyes on Netflix, which was pretty good. But I mean, recently I actually haven't had much time for
Yeah.
Netflix or for anything like that. So, but if I do have like a day where I'm like, okay, I don't need to, or maybe it's an off day from the gym, I'm like, all right, Kim, like force yourself to relax and go ahead and watch a couple episodes of something like that. So
Nice. Okay, so what is your favorite to train? Is it legs, back, or shoulders?
it used to be shoulders, and but I think recently I've actually enjoyed doing back day just because I really like with back how it's such a complex muscle group. So you have to make sure you're hitting the lats, you have to make sure you're hitting, the rhomboids, and you have to it's very like, and once you lean out, your back is one of the most places where you can see the most detail work. And
Yeah.
so I just really like that. I enjoy lifting heavy. I used to have an issue where my biceps would get tired before my back would get, and so that would always like frustrate me. But once I learned how to do that or to use straps, it's one of my favorite days.
Yeah.
I always joke that I am not a huge fan of leg day.
Really?
So probably I wasn't born with really, really small legs, but I still need to make sure that I hit them twice a week if I can.
Okay. Nice. Um, okay, so three people, one you admire, one inspires you, and then one who motivates you.
Oh man. Okay. So one I admire. Um, So I guess I really admire my mom. She's just like this most sweet, kind-hearted human being on the face of the planet. And, she will literally not say that she can't do anything. So she's definitely someone who kind of taught me that I need to be hardworking for myself just so that, you don't have to rely on anyone else to do anything for you. So you go ahead and get the job done yourself. So that's something that I really am thankful for. The second one was
Inspire,
something,
who inspires?
someone,
Yep.
okay, someone who inspires me. I would say, I guess what's naturally coming to my mind is, some of these bigger, pro figure competitors. So I guess Sydney Gillen is, one of my inspirations because she's got such a beautiful feminine, physique, and, she's just got great shape and everything. So it's something that, I mean, genetically or not, whether that's something that's attainable for me, it's something I'm like, okay, I would love to look as close to her as I can one day. So
Yeah.
I guess I could probably use her for both the inspiring and the motivating thing. So she's one of the person that I've looked up to. Another one that I've really looked up to is Ivana Vusic. I actually met her a couple times before I had turned pro, and she had turned pro a little more recently than when I had first kind of started into it. And she was actually kind of closer to the Midwest, so it's someone that I had actually um, actually like kind of always admired her physique, and kind of based what I should be working on based on kind of like what that that general, what that look would be. So I guess those are two women that I really look up to in the industry.
Yeah, both. They're both great. They're both really, really great. There's a lot of really inspiring and motivating women in this industry, especially the ones that have made it. I love that they're such great representatives of
Definitely.
the sport. So, if you were to nominate someone to be on the podcast, who would you like to see?
Man, I do not know. I don't want to like throw someone like, all right, nominated, you're gonna get, a message from oh man. I would say I have a friend who just recently turned pro at nationals, and she is my suit sponsor. So her name is Bethany Albine.
Huh?
Her suit company is Evo Fit Suits by B. So she's my suit sponsor. She's awesome. She's super genuine and down to earth. And, she's one of those really good people from social media that you meet. And it's just like, wow, she's just an amazing human being. So I probably would nominate her just because she has both like just the recently turned pro aspect as well as the company side of things. So I think it's always awesome when someone can take fitness and actually use it to create some sort of business.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. All right, awesome. Then maybe I'll hit her up.
Well, Beth, I hope that you want to, and if you didn't want to, then I'm sorry for nominating you.
Good for business. Who knows, right?
Yeah, no, I think she'll totally be up for it.
All right, awesome, awesome. So is there anything that you want to, anything you need to share, anything you want to share, you want to plug, sponsors, anything like that?
Yes. So, I mean, obviously, I want to say thanks to my coach, Andrew Quirk. His company is Quirk Nutrition. So, he actually diets a lot of people around here in Omaha. And so, along with that, all of my Quirk Nutrition fam who I train with on a regular basis, and even those that I don't like, we're also encouraging and motivating. And so, he'll kind of repost everyone to his stories, and everyone to kind of be uplifting. So I have a couple other friends that I train with, um, that I'm so thankful for their friendship and their support and everything. My suit sponsor, like Ed mentioned, Evo Fit Suits by B. She is so good at customer service and just making the suit exactly how you want it, and you can tell that she really cares about how your suit comes out, and so she's literally able to accommodate whatever requests that you need. I have my own coaching business as well, so it's a lot smaller of a scale. So depending on if I am taking on clients or not, I'll either refer them to myself, or if not, then I'll refer them to my coach. But my coaching business is Get Slim with Kim.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, so Get Slim with Kim. So if you ever are interested in dieting, you can contact me, and if I'll have room, then I'll take you on, and if not, then I'll usually point you to the big man. um but yeah, so I guess that's for the most part between my sponsors and just my big support system. Like that's I'm super thankful for everyone.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Well, it was really, really nice finally meeting you in person,
Yeah,
sort
I
of.
know, just meeting you too. I was like, oh, I am super excited. I love just like sharing different experience with different people and
Yeah,
talking about it. So this has been super, super fun.
yeah. Thank you. Thanks for the time. I know that you are taking off a little bit of, well, I don't want to say taking off of work because that would be maybe get you in trouble, but
It's just my lunch hour.
perfect. Perfect. So, all right. Well, I just want to say thanks for everybody for listening to another episode of the Women's Maximum Fitness Podcast. You can find us on Apple and Spotify and anywhere that you listen to podcasts. This will also go up on my Buffcake22 YouTube. And you can find Kim on Instagram. What is your IG handle?
My IG handle is Kim Smith IFBB Pro. So it's Kim underscore Smith underscore IFBB Pro.
Awesome.
If that's not complicated enough.
I'm sure that, with Smith being a pretty popular last name, you had to kind of
Yeah.
get him. So, but not that many pros. So, and just remember that healthy looks different on everybody. So have a great
Bye, everyone.
bye.